comes a new challenger!
Today's video is going to be, I forgot to make a disclaimer about the mousepad being sent out for a review. Of course, that doesn't go and change my perception and or opinion about this unit. It is unreleased and has yet to hit the market. Also, my name is Grim. Sorry. About a brand new unreleased speed pad. So I'm gonna briefly go over the packaging. It comes in this sleek black envelope. Mine did come, not necessarily, okay, it did come in damage, and it's not Errennir'S fault at all. I believe it is due to the postal service just mishandling it. But other than that, it does come in this sleek black envelope. And then on the back, you do have the product name, Errennir Ultra Grip Gaming Mouse Pad. The name is Gecko. Surface material, it says imported high-speed fine woven fabric. Surface texture, smooth/medium, and I'm gonna get into that later on in the video. And then the product feature says the bottom adhesive uses a special formula material. And that's basically the packaging in itself. The mouse pad does come in a whopping 500 by 500, which I feel like a lot of companies are migrating towards the square big boy mouse pad with a 3.5 millimeter thickness. As we have seen throughout the last year or two, many companies have conformed or incorporated this size, in which has generally become my favorite size mouse pad. Errennir seems to have done a great job differentiating their square pad from others, in my opinion. Although it may not look aesthetically different from what else is on the market, its profound features must definitely set itself apart from other mouse pads I've used within the same size. Disregarding the size, just in general, this mouse pad is innovating to say the least. Yes, it is a 500 by 500 mouse pad with a 3.5 millimeter thickness. You get just the right amount of firmness that is very optimal for seed, but still has enough give in the cloth when pushing firmly into. Now moving on to the weave/surface of the mouse pad. Not much has been disclosed by the company, although that the surface is a fine woven cloth material imported from Japan. And just based off my first impression, I noticed how tightly the weave was. Now, although you can feel the sensation of the fabric brushing against your skin, the amount of drag or drawback is kind of non-existent in my opinion. This feeling leads me to not really need a sleeve while gaming. Think of a stable, firm surface that doesn't change when you put pressure or change in directional orientation. This is what this mouse pad is. Now, as for the environment and how this mouse pad may play out, I personally don't see humidity being an issue with it, as the weave is so tightly woven. I don't ever really see it becoming muddy per se. Even if heat does pick up and you do happen to sweat, I think this surface actually will absorb the sweat as well, as I have noticed recently. If I leave my handprint for a while, you will see the outline of my sweat, but then within a minute or two, it does fade away, which is really nice. Alright, and then next I'm going to go over the stitching. The stitching isn't something I'm super amazed or crazy about. I mean, I don't think it's super innovating, which I generally believe it didn't need to be, as the key features really lie in the base and the surface for this pad, in my opinion. But back to the stitching, although I really do enjoy the stitching being so close to the surface, it kind of feels like it's below the surface, which actually results in no irritation or complaints when I brush my hand over the stitching or past the surface of the mouse pad. The base. Hard to say if it's my favorite thing, because the surface is actually mental on this mouse pad. This here is something I personally never seen in the market for mouse pads ever. It's probably the most innovating base that we are going to get this year. I'm glad that Errennir was the first to do it. I don't necessarily can say they're the first. It's the first I've seen on the market. But when they said innovative, they were sure as hell right. There is a ton of mouse pads in the market that like to coin the term non-slip, but this here is anti-slip. When I say there's no give, there is no give. I've seen, felt, nor experienced a base like this before. When other mousepad companies coin non-slip, this knocks that out of the water by being anti-slip. It adheres very well to my desktop. I have a traditional wood style desk and it sticks like glue. In the occasion where dirt does build up, I simply, like I did today, got a wet rag, wiped it clean, and it's basically brand new. That actually also reinstates the adhesiveness, in my opinion. So if you do get this in the future and you somehow do have an issue with it sticking, a wet towel, cloth, simple wipe down, you're good to go. But yes, this is the pinnacle of non-slip base. This is the anti-slip base. When I tell you this mousepad is not moving, it is literally sticking to my table. Can damn near pick it up. Right, so now moving into what's going to be a very brief comparison. I truly believe this mousepad here is the only thing I find similarities within the Gecko, and this is why it's going to be the only one I'm comparing it to. That is the Lethal Gaming Gear Neptune. This comes in various sizes, but I selected the 500 by 500, which is also a square size like the Gecko. They have similar stitching. I would say the stitching on the Neptune definitely appears to be more apparent and feels above surface level, whereas the Gecko pad is the polar opposite. It feels like it's almost underneath the surface of the mouse pad. With that being said, I think the Gecko is definitely more comfortable when using your bare arm or just in totality, because the surface is blended in with the stitching, whereas the Neptune sort of isn't. Depending on how much force I apply on the mouse, I feel like no matter what, the Gecko carries that momentum, whereas the Neptune, it has more of a control aspect for a speed pad. I feel like just being able to physically see the weave itself gives the assumption that the weave isn't as tight as the Gecko. Therefore, I think it does pick up friction and doesn't hold a smooth glide like the Gecko. And then I would like to also mention that Gecko does a phenomenal job where the x-axis and the y-axis feels like a perfect blend. So you don't necessarily have a difference in control or speed. Whereas I believe, from my experience and what I feel, the x-axis on the Neptune is fast. The y-axis is definitely noticeably a lot slower. Depending on the game again and your sense and how you play, this might benefit you more. But I personally feel like if you want a true speed pad that doesn't have that amount of friction that the Neptune does, has this smooth surface, this is definitely more texturized, and I would definitely use a sleeve on this. Stitching is below surface level and is just overall, in my opinion, the better speed pad. For my final thoughts on the Gecko, I believe the Gecko will remain as my substitute for glass, as I truly believe it is the truest speed pad I've ever came across, and this is disregarding the Shinnegai V2 because I like to point out that the mouse pad legit has glass particles, so it's not its traditional cloth speed pad. Whereas the Gecko, I feel like although it is the most innovating speed pad, it does still carry all those traditional aspects of a speed cloth pad, where foam bases and soft speed pads have issues with air bubbles or being too plush, which causes inconsistencies in the surface, or where mid/hard bases usually lack material. They lack material that aids cushion and comfort, and that's usually thicknesses under 3 millimeters. The weave is so damn tight that the texture of the surface almost feels non-existent on my skin, and this comes from someone who also, again, main glass as well as a sleeve every day for a year plus. In my genuine opinion, this is all around a gem of a mouse pad, and a stellar one at that, being their first mouse pad by Errennir. I'm very excited to see what's next from them, but until then I will remain having the Gecko in my lineup. So this was my review on the Gecko Speed Pad by Errennir, and of course you guys know I'm Grim, and if you don't know, I'm Grim. But yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.